Hello, fans, and welcome to another edition of Reflections. Now, I'll tell you, we're going to pull back the curtain a little bit, and we're pushing the midnight hour here with the Honky Tonk Man, the greatest intercontinental champion of all time. I'm sure you've heard that before. Thanks for joining us here on Reflections at midnight, just shy of Halloween.
Yes, it seems like every time I do these RF videos, things happen. Late at night.
That owner's a little shady.
Well, it's just that sometimes things get out of hand.
Well,
we're going to try to keep it a little bit nicer and better than some of the things I've done in the past. I'm trying to. I'm working really hard on, changing my image.
Now you've,
well, the first thing I did is really hard. I'm just letting the hair grow out in the front, and it's not anything for the Hardy Boys. I'm not trying to be like them. I'm not trying to do some broken bullshit gimmick. I don't know what the fuck that's all about, but anyway, they're both good kids, so they can probably tell me. I dedicated this to one of the old time wrestlers named Sputnik Monroe, and he had the black hair. And he had the white in the front. And I got really tired of just doing the black hair all the time.
Right.
And I started to let this little part in the front grow out. And I've had more people recognize me now as far as going, gosh, you're that wrestler guy. Because they see the white part right in the front of my hair. And then they see the sideburns and they kind of put two and two together. So that's helped out a little bit in being recognizable again. So that's one of the reasons why I did it. And many years ago, I did an angle with a boy named Austin Idol down in Southeastern Wrestling with the Fullers. And I had blonde hair, he had blonde hair. And the angle was, we're not going to do a hair cutting match like everybody. Whoever loses gets a haircut. This was going to be, there's not enough room here in the territory for two people with blonde hair. So we're going to have a hair dye match. And, somebody's hair is going to be another color. And Idol came out and he had different color spray paint and had a wig on a mannequin. And, hey, he might have a little red, he might have a little purple, might have a little yellow. And,
right.
And then, of course, I had this black spray, and I said, Idol, I'm going to spray paint you black. But anyway, I lose the match after we did it. The reason we did a hair dye was not only, if you do a haircut match, then you only really get one match out of it, because once the hair's been cut, nobody cares anymore. So we did the hair dye match, and this was the stuff you could spray in and wash it out that the kids wear nowadays. You could spray this stuff in and wash it out. So we did that like 6 nights in a row until then I showed up on TV the following Saturday after doing this in each one of the towns and made us some money. I showed up on TV with black hair, just like it is now, long sideburns I had, and I left the white spot in the front. Yeah. And I was going by the name of Punk Rock Wayne Ferris. That's my real name for some of the people that don't know.
I'm surprised that didn't stick.
It was way ahead of its time.
Yeah.
Because at that point in time in the late 70s, Kurt Cobain and those guys, the Sex Pistols, I think, was like the creators of this Johnny, what was his name, Johnny Rotten?
Yeah.
Those guys were like cutting edge of punk rock. And so I adopted this name, then I'd be Punk Rock. And then getting the hair dyed, then they went on TV after that, and they were down there, being in the South, they were calling me Skunk Rock. So that name lasted for a while until I dyed it completely black, and some wrestling fans gave me the jumpsuit.
So that gave birth to the Honky Tonk
That's
Man.
how that all transpired over about a period of about 6 months or so. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can credit the fans a little bit for giving birth to that.
Yeah, because I was probably going to continue to be punk rock.
Right.
It wasn't taking off by any means, but down there in Mobile and Pensacola and Dothan, Alabama, and Birmingham, it worked good. Skunk rock, people loved yelling at you saying that.
Sure.
And but it wasn't something that was taking off. And I even did the face paint where I painted one of my eyes and all these things that.
Were you reluctant to go in with the Elvis?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I wasn't an Elvis fan. I grew up in Memphis, but being force-fed Elvis for so many years on radio and television. In 1963, when the Beatles came along, these Beatle kids, they rocked the earth.
Was Elvis considered not cool? Or for
I think the thing. Well, for other fans, he probably was, but people down around Memphis, it was all his songs were on the radio all the time. All the cheesy movies. That was like where they were in the movie theater for like a month.
Right.
Fun in Acapulco and whatever. I don't know. Gee, all that bullshit. They were sick ass little cheese. He didn't even like making the goddamn things.
Right.
So we were fed that kind of shit, and when the Beatles came along, I was a Beatles fan, and then the Rolling Stones, and they took me away. So I wasn't into the Elvis thing, and these fans, a couple of wrestling fans, mentioned to me. They said, "You had the sideburns, you had the black hair. Have you ever thought about an Elvis thing?" I said, "Absolutely not." And they said, "We're going to make you something for your birthday." And a month later, on my birthday, they had somebody take measurements. And I said, "What are you guys doing?" "We're going to make it." And they showed up with a gold lame jumpsuit.
Right.
And
Did you think you were going to have a hard time turning that character into a heel because Elvis was so beloved?
Well, I had, from this being this punk rock and skunk rock, I had a tremendous amount of heat on me anyway, as far as when wrestling goes, heat, that fans hated me.
Right.
So the transition was easy. All I did now was put a jumpsuit on, and then the promoter, who was Robert Fuller, Colonel Robert Parker in WCW.
Sure.
Who he had a marriage with Sensational Sherry.
I love that.
Who ended up being Peggy Sue in WWE with Honky Tonk Man. Colonel Parker, Robert, he said he sees the jumpsuit, the black hair, and the sideburns, and he says, and I wanted to cut my hair because I had long blonde hair at the time, and after the hair dye match, then I cut it, left a spot, then I said, "The heck with it," and dyed the whole thing, and had it short, the jumpsuit. "Man, have you ever thought about a guitar? Can you play a guitar?" I said, "No, I can't play guitar at all." He said, "I'll tell you what, I'm going to bring a guitar next week and we'll do something, man. You go out there and you hit Bob Armstrong with that and we'll be off and running." So that's what happened. That's how the guitar came about.
Let's talk. Let's jump to back to.
So that's a little bit of history. I don't want to cut you off, but a lot of wrestling fans, they only know what I did when they saw me in WWF.
Of course.
And to the fans today of their age group, that's all they really care about. But the whole history of how the gimmick itself evolved was that way. And then I spent the next 3 or 4 years working on it, perfecting it, until I brought it to WWE, so that then the fans saw it. So I had polished it up and made it work. And I knew it would be a good bad guy gimmick.
Right.
Although Vince did not see it that way.
Right. All right. Well, we'll get all into that. Let's jump ahead to what you said as we started this. You talked about you were trying to clean up your image. You were trying to be a kinder, gentler Honky Tonk Man.
Yes.
Before this transition and maybe seeing the light, you were kind of a lightning rod of controversy with maybe your comments of things you've said about people. Now, do you think that's gotten you a negative backlash from the WWE as it stands, or fans in general when they look at you? Because fans glom on the controversy. They love the if you're going to badmouth somebody. That's what gets hits and clicks.
Yes. But then here's what the fans do. And I've learned this over a period of time by doing several of the videos with RF, is the fans love it. They love the truthfulness. They love how you are so open and honest and call this guy a cocksucker and this one was an asshole and all these other adjectives that I've used to, demonize some of these other wrestlers or some of the other people in the profession. But yet then what they will do is turn around and say, oh, he's just a bitter old guy.
Right.
He's a complete asshole, and this shows you that he's bitter and he hates everyone, and that's the reason of all these other things. So there is whatever positive you might get out of it, in some ways, it becomes a negative towards you in other ways. And the WWE question, I know that I've heard, I don't know if it's true, I heard it from somewhere that Triple H has told guys or girls when they were leaving the company, you're welcome to come back, but don't do those shoot interviews. So it could be,
it's funny you say that because this company has had a run-in with Triple H. And as far as, I won't speak for the owner, and I just, as a caveat, I do not work for RF Video. I come in, I do these in an independent thing, so this does not reflect in RF Video. But we were told by WWE when we were trying to work with some talent to bring them to a convention that I run, that they didn't want them to work with us because of these shoot interviews.
I can understand that, and I believe it's to be true, because why? If guys want to come out and talk and do an interview or go, if you're not with that company anymore, you should be free to do what you want to do and not hold something over you and say, well, if you go do one of these shoot interviews, you're never coming back. Well, they're probably not going to bring you back anyway.
Right.
Shoot or no shoot. If they wanted you there, you'd be there.
Right.
I mean, that's quite simple. That's the way I look at it. The thing is, when I started doing these, and I was way out in the forefront and the cutting edge of doing them, and I remember one of the first ones that I did with RF. I said, who did you have and who have you had? And it was like, well, we had Bill Watts and we had Dusty Rhodes and this. I said, well, how were they? Well, they really didn't answer the questions. I said, oh, okay. You don't mind answering the questions? I said, I don't give a shit. Ask me anything. So That's how it started. And when I set the bar pretty high, and I'm not blowing my own horn, but I set the bar pretty high, that a lot of the wrestlers said to me, man, you shouldn't have done those things. You shouldn't be doing that. You're getting a lot of heat with the wrestlers, man. But then every time each one of them got fired or they quit the company, as soon as RF called them, they jumped on the bandwagon and ran over here and did an interview and got paid.
Right.
But not one of those assholes would call me and say, thank you so much, because on that Friday night or that Saturday night, I had nothing to do and I got paid to go sit down and do an interview. None of them. And not one person offered to say anything that said, you did this. Hey, I've heard interviews from other guys that's been on RF shows, and they have knocked WWE, knocked the company, knocked the people that's in charge there right now.
They've done it to me. I've heard it all.
And some of them are working there now.
They are.
In management positions.
I can name a couple, but well.
Hall of Famers. So I take all that sometimes with a grain of salt, but I know that if as Vince says, and he loved that gimmick, every man has a price, and he proves that sometimes on a daily basis with how he does business. I know that if RF shakes enough of the $1 Million Man money falling out of the sky, everyone that leaves that company will sit right here in this chair where I am and talk.
I mean, all we do is provide a platform. I mean, any question I'm going to ask you is something I've researched and is based in fact. We're not.
I know, and that's the thing, and we don't make. I haven't sat on any of these interviews and ever just made up some concocted bullshit story out of my head, because I'm not very good at making up stuff.
Right.
What I would like to do someday and put a whole new different spin on these is to sit down, instead of having some nonsense round table in WWE headquarters, is to have a round table of guys that have done these shoot interviews, and let's hash it out and lay it out here and see if it's, I was telling one of the guys earlier, and one of the girls, I've had guys that said, man, you were talking about arena rats, and you were talking about out back of the building and in the back seat and underneath the bleachers and doing all these things with these broads. Man, you could get me a divorce talking like that. I said, well, hell, you're on your third wife, and this one right now, she wasn't even born when you was getting a blowjob behind the building.
Right.
I mean, how's that going to get you a divorce?
Right. I mean, I think if these people don't know what they're getting into, I mean, come on.
Well, I don't even know if I've ever told this story, but when I met my wife in Calgary 33 years ago, and I told her straight out. I said, look, but this is the life I live. If someday some kid shows up and rings the doorbell and says, I'm here to see my dad, it could be true. It could be fucking true.
Sideburns and a good singing voice.
So
and you
know what I said? I said, if you can live with that, then we'll be okay. But I said, if you can't live with the fact that, there might be another girl in this room tomorrow night. You're not the only one.
Right. Was she okay with it?
Well, obviously we've been together almost 34 years. So.
I think I'm going to say that to my girlfriend when we leave.
Well,
here.
I think it's very important. And
I don't like that look I'm getting.
But you need to get that
Sure.
out and not have that hanging over your head. Where if something does come up later on, and I would tell her this. I said, you're going to go into the buildings. You're going to be maybe in the bathroom, and some girls are going to come in, and they're going to say, oh, I was with Honky Tonk Man last night, or oh, I was with this wrestler last night, and oh, I'm going to be with him tonight, and yeah, I'm meeting Honky Tonk Man at the hotel. And you're sitting there on the toilet knowing that you're going to be with me, you're my wife, and you're in town, and I'm not going to be with some girl. So
right.
You can't believe all the shit you hear in the locker room, nor can you believe all the shit that you hear in the bathroom.
But speaking of WWE and coming off that, I mean, there's workplace grievances no matter what, and this is just providing. I mean, you're famous. You're traveling. You're in front of a TV camera. This is just airing grievances that people are interested in, because people wouldn't be interested in if you work at Staples. Nobody cares about what's going on in the back room, but I'm sure there's just as many grievances in any workplace. So
we have the Hollywood thing now that's. As we're here, it's fresh news. I don't know when this will play, but even if it plays 6 months from now, this Hollywood thing's still going to be fresh news. It's not uncommon for a lot of things to happen. It's not uncommon for basketball, football, baseball, hockey players. Heck, I've even gone by the fire station, see firemen leaning over in the car and some young girl. Well, that ain't his wife, and it probably ain't his daughter.
Right. Do you think that speaks to the arrogance of WWE in 2017, almost 18, where they have where they've pretty much monopolized wrestling in the States, at least, where they feel like I
know they want to dictate a lot of things, and of course they want. They have this corporate image. It's very important. That's why people ask now, they say, wrestling's not like it used to be. There's no good bad guys, like you were a good bad guy and this was a good guy. Because if you're a good bad guy now in the corporate world and selling stocks, if some shareholders say, I don't like that guy, the way he's making people mad.
Right.
We're going to cash out, or we're not going to buy stock. So then they tell you to tone it down and you can't. I was talking to one of the girls, the Marlena girl, and she was one of the first ladies to come out dressed really nice and sharp and had this cigar and everything, and that wouldn't play now.
Right.
I mean, lit cigar, well, it wouldn't be lit because there's nobody smokes on television anymore. But if for her to just walk out with it, even if she just had the cigar in her hand, it'd be like, no, they're peddling tobacco to children, and there's so much going on in our world. But you can't really, in some ways, blame WWE for their monopolizing that they've done, because they've worked very hard at putting a good product out.
Sure.
And some of the independent wrestlers, wrestling promoters that had bigger independent and had full-time promotions, they didn't put a lot of money back into their promotion, and they let WWE gobble up the talent.
Right.
It's just that simple. And once the talent's gone, then is it monopolizing? I don't know that it is, because you're just paying guys better.
Right.
And if they're independent contractors and you're paying better, if they're a football player and the team owner, see, that's why they have salary caps and all this stuff in these other sports, to stop the rating of this owner's got so much money that he can buy all these $15 million players. And so they saw that happening in the other sports, but wrestling is still out there in the Wild West as far as that goes with independent contractors.
Sure.
And they can throw money to who they want whenever they want. Do
you take their Hall of Fame seriously?
It's a TV show.
Right.
I mean, it's a TV show. I would always say, it was nonsense, it was bullshit in a way it is, but winding down in my career now, would it be okay to do it? Probably. Yeah.
Right.
Would it happen? Who knows?
Do you feel,
I don't really care either way.
With the people that they have let in, and not naming names, I mean, if you're going to go by a career, you should have gotten in over a lot of people who have. Do you feel slighted by that at all?
No, it's...
Do you think that's a reflection of the controversial Honky Tonk Man? Do you think they're afraid to give you a live mic at an induction ceremony?
No, they know I'd be a good boy.
Right.
I mean, I'm going to buy... I'm loyal to the person signing my check that day.
Right. and that's the way wrestling is. I mean,
no, I wouldn't go out there and cause any controversy with them at all. Well, why? Why should I? Because the Hall of Fame thing is, as my friend Ricky Martin said in his acceptance speech with the Rock and Roll Express, I'm glad to get this Hall of Fame because my independent money just went up.
And it did.
And it did. Yes, it did. And it does. And,
right.
And so that part of it is... maybe that's why the Hall of Fame itself doesn't pay that well. I would like for it to be a lot more. And, of course, they're still paying by 10 years ago standards. And the rate of inflation right now, it should be quite a bit more than what they pay. And for them to say it's one set pay scale for everyone, now that's bullshit.
Yeah.
That's not true at all. And everything's negotiable.
Right. I'm just going to hit on a little current topics now, and then we'll go back into some stories that I wanted to talk about that we've talked about in the past. Ric Flair recently had a health scare. You have not really ever seen eye to eye with Ric Flair. Does this surprise you with what happened? Or maybe I have that wrong.
I don't know where this thing they said that, or anybody, that Rick and I, these guys write these fucking books.
Right.
And they put shit in there and then it's like it's ambush.
Right.
I never said anything at all about Rick at all until all of a sudden he writes in that silly ass book of his that I would have never been nothing without Hulk Hogan. It's like, come on, Rick, stop the bullshit. You've known me a long time before I went to WWE.
Right.
And he knew what my background was and what I had achieved before I went there. So to say that, I thought, well, you could have picked on a lot of other people than me. I mean, why me? But anyway, so I fired back at him. And
your criticism really didn't start on him until that book, right?
They shot the first shot across the bow. And me being a little bit like our president now, Donald Trump. Donald, he says, if you hit me, I'm going to hit back. So,
Right.
I would hit back, and then it got blown really, really more than what it was. And every time I've seen Rick, no matter where, it's been just like the old days. There's no crosswords.
Right. Did you vote for Trump?
No, I wasn't registered to vote at all,
okay.
but I
Just curious.
I am now.
Right.
But by the time I registered, it was too late.
Right.
I didn't even know about this deadline on registration. I had never voted in my life because I didn't really take politics very seriously because it's all bullshit work anyway.
Right.
And this particular cycle of the election process with the Trump and Hillary captivated me. I've only been captivated by something that happened on TV. This would be the second time with the election, which with the OJ thing. I mean, I was like, I had to have my OJ fix. I was addicted to that shit.
Sure.
I mean, I had to get my OJ fixed like every day. And then when the election come along with this one, it's like I got to have my election fix every day. And now that Trump is in there, it's even more addictive. I got to have my Trump fix every day. I only follow 6 people on Twitter, and Trump is one of them.
Right. He's more controversial than you.
He loves it.
He does love it.
I loved it too. I mean, what better way to get your message out than to go out and say something that everybody wants to say, but they're too cowardly to do it. Mm-hmm. I say things and I do things that everyone's too cowardly to say. And then I get heat for it. It's like Trump. To call this Korean guy Little Rocket Man, I think that's a lovely name.
That's a wrestling angle.
For me to call Ric Flair saggy ass, I thought that was a great name.
Right.
But you know what? That back again. I mentioned earlier about guys that would never, even now, come up and say, thank you so much for that, turning me on to RF videos and the RF things that they do, that I was able to make a payday, some of them multiple paydays. Some of them have made very good paydays from doing them, doing these. Then when you really go out then and you say the stuff that they don't want to say, and then they come on here and then they say it, but then they come off as they're better than me. But I set the standards, like I said. And then on our podcast that I was doing, it was very controversial. It was way out there, cutting edge again. It was before the wrestlers were all doing podcasts. And it was before you could get paid to do podcasts. They get paid to do them. Now they get paid, some of them very well. We had an impersonator come on, and he did the Ric Flair impersonations and stuff for me. And later on, Roddy Piper, God bless him, I would have liked to have, and I was supposed to meet Roddy. We were going to see each other in California at a Comic Con and up in Sacramento. He was going to be there that weekend and then passed away that week. And I was hoping that, and we were going to sit down and find out why he wanted to beat the shit out of me all the time. And I never understood why, but he always said if there's one wrestler he wanted to beat up, it was me. I don't know what happened or where, and I don't know to this day, and now that Roddy's not around. But Roddy, back to the story, Roddy got used an impersonator to do a Stone Cold impersonation on his podcast, and I guess Stone Cold wasn't happy about it, and things fell apart with Roddy and WWE, and Roddy just... then he was gone.
Yeah.
So I've done things that people said I shouldn't do, but yet I've been copied with my formats and things like that. Mm-hmm. I was the first guy to do podcast and wrestling podcast and use other people on a podcast other than wrestlers.
Right.
I put people on my show that were not even from wrestling. Some of them were from movies and When I had Ken Shamrock on, we didn't talk about wrestling. We talked about MMA and UFC and things like that. And I had Billy Corgan on, and we talked a lot about his career, his music, and some about wrestling. And and we did things like ins and outs, where we would have like a real radio show, commercial breaks, and play music. In between these breaks, we had music coming in the show, going out of the show, and it was out front, cutting edge, and now it's been copied by a lot of people. It's kind of like watching NFL now and seeing a lot of the stuff that Vince tried to do when he did his XFL football with the cameras over, and the only thing you haven't done is upskirts of the cheerleaders like Vince did. So.
I'm sure maybe that'll come one day. You mentioned Hulk Hogan. What was your reaction with his scandal with the racism and his blackballing and everything that happened with him?
I thought that was that racism exists everywhere, not just in America, not just in sports or politics, or it exists on every corner of the earth. You can hear black people call each other all kinds of names any given time of day. And you can hear white people call white people names. I thought the whole thing on the Hogan was to go back in time. And you can go back in time, and people can, they can dig up any kind of shit they want to on me.
Right.
Going back far enough. I think there should be like a limitation on how far you can go back. It's like they went back on Donald Trump like 40 years. Jesus Christ, man. Or even with Bill Clinton, they went back on him like he's in college. Did you smoke marijuana?
Right.
I think his answer should have been, well, of course I did. It was the 60s, man. Everybody smoked marijuana.
I think people would have liked him more for it.
But he tried to play the thing, and you can't play them and because you can't win, and Hogan couldn't win on that either.
Right.
WWE's position before selling stocks and New York Stock Exchange, they probably would have that would have just been something that happened one day and the next day was forgotten. Is it different now? I'm sure.
Right.
I'm sure. What I liked about the old Hogan was this. And it's a hell of a thing. I go fuck a man's wife, I might get shot. He goes fucks a man's wife, makes $50 million.
He sure did.
It's the goddamnest thing I've ever heard in my life. I'm serious. I mean, Hogan? Hell yeah, brother. Shit. You got something going there.
He sure did.
Hell, I'll let you fuck my wife if you'll split the money with me. Goddamn. Think about that, though. That's a hell of a thing.
That's exactly what happened, if you really want to look at it like that.
I mean, anybody else would have, the husband would have come in with a gun and shot your ass, or I don't know. I mean, had to, 20 redneck hillbillies in a pickup truck, lynch you or some shit, or castrate you. Hell, he made $50 million fucking dollars. Jesus, damn, good for him. I love him. I mean, I love the guy. Him and I have had some battles back and forth about things, but overall, I mean, shit, he always, for some reason, he can get into some shit and land on his feet.
Yeah.
And poor old Flair, now he gets into shit and just gets deeper in it.
You made a statement. Sure does. You made a statement about Hogan one time. I wanted you to elaborate on that in a previous interview. You said that you not word for word, but you said something along the lines that Hogan made mistakes along the way because he didn't keep the people around him. He went solo, and he didn't keep people around him.
Yes.
Like you, yourself, or whoever.
Well,
he didn't have an inner circle.
Whoever which a lot of times in sports teams and sports franchises, if you're very successful, I'll take the New England Patriots. they don't change a lot of personnel from what they've had in the years before. Well, you're winning Super Bowls. You don't want to change everybody. And Hogan had a group of guys. Actually, it was a whole locker room full of guys who would have followed him anywhere. I mean, he carried the torch, and he carried it very well because he made us a lot of money because he was over like a son of a bitch, and he was selling tickets. And then he would just gradually, as time went on, pulled away from everyone that helped him along with his abilities to do what he did. Because he knows he wouldn't have done it. You can't do it on your own. It's impossible. And so as time went on, and it has time now, some guys that was in his inner circle, Beefcake, Valentine, Brian Knobs, some more.
Hacksaw?
Well, I don't know if he was, but Jimmy Hart's still there. Other than that, there's not anybody. There's no hanger owners.
Right.
And I never considered myself one of those hanger owners to Hogan because I didn't move to Tampa, and we didn't fly on the planes together every day, and I didn't beg him for a job in WCW or anything like that. I felt like if I'm going to earn a living or I'm going to be successful, I'll do it on my own merits. But it's nice to have a companion like a Hogan that you're in that fraternity with, because years ago, and I remember when back to Roddy would always talk about fraternity, the fraternity of the frat brothers, and us all be together. In his era, they all stuck together. This group that George Scott had at one time out of Charlotte was a whole group of guys that ended up in WWE when Vince started to take over, the parts of the United States. It was Slaughter, and it was Piper, and it was Orton and Orndorff, and it was Superfly Jimmy Snuka, and a lot of those guys. They all came in as a group, and they were that group, and they stuck together as a group, and they did it in other territories, and so that's the thing that I always thought. Hogan had the ability to keep a good nucleus around him, and it's like a quarterback that you don't have an offensive line blocking for you anymore, and pretty soon you're not going to be as good.
Do you think Vince had something to do with breaking up his inner circle?
It could have had some of it to do, yeah, because, divide and conquer.
Right.
Is always a good thing,
Because Vince and Hogan became really tight.
They were really close, and
do you think that was to the detriment of Hogan?
No, it was the betterment for him, for his wallet.
But I mean, in the locker room and in the way he was viewed.
No, not really. I don't think it had an effect.
Okay.
Because he was the top guy, and Vince is the top. And Vince was a nice guy, nice to everyone back then. Mm-hmm. I mean, he kind of enjoyed the camaraderie and us having this inner circle, but he knew that as time went on, the circle might become too strong.
Okay.
Just like, will the circle be unbroken?
Right.
And there comes a point in time where it does have to be broken, and it eventually was. And who knows why, and how? But just this guy gets gone, this guy's gone, and the move to WCW was the one that surprised me with Hogan, wanting to get that circle back together, but then not keeping it, not standing up for it once it was there.
Right.
It was like, for some reason, him and Eric Bischoff, I gave him that name, Bischoff, and then a lot of guys call him that now. But him and Eric, now what I understand is Bischoff had said something the other day, posted that he wasn't hired, he was hired by TNA for one reason, and that was because Hogan wanted him to be there, not in any capacity other than to lead, guide, and direct Hogan's character in that company. He didn't sit in on meetings. He wasn't part of the booking committee. He had no say over anything except what was going on with Hulk Hogan. So that's interesting.
That is interesting.
So as the WCW thing fell apart, and none of Hogan's boys were around him even after that, then he goes to the TNA and never really takes anybody but Bischoff.
Right. Going back to the early days, just getting into it, how instrumental, I've heard stories and you tell the story, but how instrumental was Hogan in your initial WWE, getting you into the WWE? Was it?
He gave me the contact. I mean, he was my contact person. I was living in Calgary, and they had a show coming into there, and I was working on top in Calgary, and Stu wanted the WWE to come and be part of the big Calgary Stampede show, 20,000 seat stadium or arena there, and knew it was going to be big and bring WWE. Now, mind you, you had Dynamite Davey, where I think they might have been tag team champions, or they were fighting the Dream Team, who might have been tag team champions. Dynamite and Davey was there. Bret and Jim were there. And so Stu wanted Vince, and Vince was very cooperative back then with Stu and some other promoters sometimes to co-promote. And Stu asked, could he put one of his feature matches that he had on that show, and Vince okayed it, and it was me against an older guy there, a boy named, not the young Dan Crawford, an older guy, and we had a hot program going. It was doing very well. And so that showcased us on that big show. And that's where I saw Hogan again, and I hadn't seen him in 10 years. And he told me that he was in with this Vince McMahon guy, and they were doing wonderful business, and why I'm not there. And
now, before you had that conversation with Hogan, did you have your eye on the WWE, or were you happy doing what you were doing?
I was like anyone else out there in the wrestling industry. You'd see Saturday night's main events, and you're seeing these big arenas and these I thought they were real flash bulbs. That's how stupid I was. They were fucking shit hanging out of the top of the building that Dick Ebersol had planted out there.
They worked you?
Yeah. I thought they were real flash bulbs. Fuck. But anyway, it looked.
Right.
It looked really good on television.
Yes.
It was, the show was slick. It was fabulous. It was high energy, and the crowd was hot. And you then Dynamite and Davey and Bret and Jim would come back to Calgary, and of course drop into the locker room, and they're driving new cars, and they're wearing fur coats, and money's flowing like fucking wine.
Right.
And they're telling us about these big ass paychecks. And, well, hell yes, I want a piece of that shit.
Okay.
But
you never reached out to Hogan, though.
No, I never reached out to anyone in WWE. I didn't ask Bret and Jim. I didn't ask Dynamite or Davey.
Why not? You see the money flowing. Is it pride?
I don't know. I just thought, I'd like to, someday I'd like to have some of that shit, But it's like going to the strip club and you're seeing this one broad, and she's really working that pole pretty good. I want some of that shit,
I don't know. I've never been in one.
I don't. Well, stay out of there.
Yeah,
it's not going to help you, I can tell you.
So, but I find that.
I don't know why I equated it to that.
Doesn't everything really equate to strip clubs?
I suppose, or some kind of a sexual endeavor. There was a band named Steely Dan. Steely Dan's a fucking dildo. Come on, for Christ's sakes. Every song out there is written has sexual content.
That's because sex sells.
I guess.
That's why Rob has me doing the interviews.
I reckon. I don't know why. He wants. If you want me to get naked, I don't want to kill. I don't. I don't. Yes, it's already happened. Yes, that's already happened. So that doesn't.
All right, we have to pull this out. It's late.
Back to.
Yes, Hogan.
No, I never reached out. You know what I told him when he asked me that night in the because we went into the shower room and Beefcake came in too, because I'd known both those kids and we were friends, and Beefcake had made this transformation. I didn't even recognize him. I didn't even know he was Brutus Beefcake, I didn't even realize he was Dizzy Hogan. It was like, this is not the same guy.
Right.
Like me. I mean, I transformed from long blonde hair and punk rock and the Blonde Bomber into an Elvis guy with a guitar. So I was totally different too, and a lot of people didn't recognize me. But back to Hogan, when he said, man, how come you hadn't tried to come over here with us? I said, to be honest, I didn't. You see Roddy Piper, and you see Bob Orton, and you see Junkyard Dog, and George Animal Steel, and Macho Man, and it's like, I said, I didn't know if I was good enough.
I was going to ask you that. Did you doubt yourself?
Yeah, there was doubt there of whether or not I was really good enough to compete on that level with. Not that I didn't know these guys and I had been around them and been in the locker rooms with them over the period of years. It was just that they were being showcased on a big stage that was so big with this lights and national television and all this action that was going on. I was overwhelmed by it, that I was humbled by the fact that I'm stuck up here in Calgary, Canada in the deep freeze. And I just came out of Pensacola 2 years before that. I've got this cheesy gimmick, and black hair, sideburns, and jumpsuit, and a guitar, and a name, Honky Tonk Man. It's a pretty racist name, as far as that goes. Nowadays, it wasn't then. Will I get in the Hall of Fame? I don't know. Maybe Honky Tonk Man's too racist. You honky son of a bitch. It's funny. I went to the black radio station in Chicago one time to do promo work, and they said, we were having a show at Rosemont Horizon, me against Macho Man. Macho Man always got the really good pop rock stations and stuff. They sent me to country stations, and they're like, what the fuck? Why did you send me there? Maybe I like the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, the AC/DC. I like Kiss. I listen to that stuff. So, but anyway, I go to the black radio station, and we were in the pre-warm up stages, and the lady says, before we go on air, what do you want us to call you? I said, you can call me Honky. You can call me Honky Tonk Man. Really? I said, well, yeah, that's my wrestling name. So we go out there, because I didn't smarten her up. We get out there live on radio in Chicago, drive time in the morning. And she says, yeah, we have the Honky Tonk Man here, professional wrestler, performer. I said, yeah. I said, and she said, is that what we call you? I said, sure, you can call me Honky. I'm the only white man that won't get mad about it. And so we laughed it off and made fun of it.
Right.
And that's how I've done it. And but back to the stage was so big, and WrestleMania, Vince and Mean Gene and they sold this thing to us so big and so huge. It was like the biggest thing in wrestling, and in wrestling and all the years that I toiled away in bingo halls and VFW halls and rodeos and getting dressed with the cows and the pig shit and everything else in a dirty locker room, and then to see this big extravaganza, it makes you think, will I ever get there?
Right.
What will it take for me to be there? And he told me, he said, shit, you're as good as anybody else, man, shit.
Hogan told you that?
Yeah, he said, fuck, you've been working on top longer than some of these guys. He said, this guy loves me, and we talk 10 times a day. He said, give me your number, I'll have him call you. He said, I'll talk to him tonight as soon as this show's over. He might call you tonight. 7 o'clock the next morning, phone rang, and he told me to bring a tape of something and some matches, some interviews, and can I be there on Wednesday? And
were you nervous?
Flew over there. Not really nervous, so much as I'd interviewed with other promoters. I mean, a lot of times you get, a guy will bring you in. It's like if you're my friend and I'm working for Rob Feinstein and Rob needs someone to do an interview and I know that you can do it. Hey Rob, I got this buddy here. He's pretty good at it. Let's bring him over and let him do it. Right. So I mean, you're shoot in kind of. with Hogan not being there in the office that day to introduce and all that, it was a bit intimidating. But the office was a small place back then. It was not a big place, and it was. I mean, I knew going in, talking to Vince he's a promoter. I'm a wrestler, and all I can do is tell him what I can do for him, not what I want or what do I need from him, because I don't think that's ever a good way to approach a job interview. You tell them what you can do, and not ever mention what do you know. If he'd asked me, well, what kind of money you're looking for, I'd say, I'd pay me what you think I'm worth.
Okay.
And actually, that's kind of how it was, and that was kind of our deal. If you give me a chance and I do good, pay me. If I don't do it, if I can't get the job done, you don't got to fire me. I'll pack up and leave anyway.
Was he sold on you from the get-go, or did it take some convincing to get behind the character?
I think when because he wanted to see some material on me because he didn't know me at all. He'd heard about me.
Right.
I mean, he's got his thumb on. I mean, he knew I'd worked on top and Memphis and the Blonde Bombers, and he even mentioned that. And you don't look like a Blonde Bomber anymore. Well, of course not. And anyway, I showed him the tapes, and I knew from what I would want to look at from someone, it was a small clip of a match where I go out, I do a little bit, and then I get the guitar and I'm beating the shit out of this guy. I'm hitting him about 10 times. And then there was an interview segment where I did an interview, and I did the interview. The interview was like 3 minutes, and I did it by myself holding a microphone with no one there.
Right.
And that pretty much sold him me in the jumpsuit and holding the microphone, the whole gimmick, and holding the guitar and talking for 3 minutes. Because to be able to carry an interview back then was very important. Obviously, I don't need a manager to talk. I don't need the Captain Lou, or I don't need Bobby Heenan, and I don't have to have a prop. And Elvis loved the music stuff because he wanted to be he had tried promoting music in concerts before. Now he does it, he promotes concerts. He had the Rolling Stones concert that came in New Jersey, and he was the one that put that up on the satellite, had all his camera crew and all his production people that did that concert. He loves those big trucks and buses and vans, and hell, when the WWE comes to town for a pay-per-view, it's bigger than a Rolling Stones. He's got 50 trucks and buses and bullshit out there. Hell, you can't even find a place to park. They take up everything around the building.
Right.
But he was taken away with that, with the Elvis thing, the music thing. And of course, he was a 50s guy. He grew up in the 50s, and he knew all that stuff. And Vince's very intelligent and very knowledgeable about a lot of things. And so he envisioned little kids wearing jumpsuits and Elvis wigs and sunglasses and little guitars.
He wanted you as a face.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I told him flat out, I said, I haven't developed this character this way. I don't know if I can make it work the other way. And he was pretty sure we could get a rub off of Hogan, put me on some interview segments with Hogan and things like that. And the people just shit at it. It was horrible.
Right.
I couldn't make it work. I can now. I make it work perfectly now.
Yeah.
But at that point in time, I really wasn't smart enough to know how to make it work the other way. I think if he had given me some time to go back to Calgary and spend a month working on it, I could have made it work.
Right.
But to just be thrown out there then all of a sudden, because Stu kept me as a bad guy the whole time for the next 2 months. It was like 2 months or 3 months before they actually brought me in to get me worked in on the booking sheet. If they would have said during that 3 months, Stu, you need to switch me. They're going to bring me in as a good guy. Let me work on this, and I probably could have made it work.
Right.
Who knows? I might have been one of their big babyface stars. I knew I could make it work as a bad guy.
Sure.
I knew that. I had these little key words and little key points that I could hit that I knew that would touch nerves with people no matter where they were from. They didn't have to be from from Podunk, Arkansas, for me to talk about something. I knew that if I touched the right and I said the right keyword at the right time, you know, about being like when I had the belt, I'm the greatest of all time. I can't be beat.
Right.
No one can beat me. I'm the honky tonk man.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to shake, rattle, and roll you, Macho Man. Then I'm going to take Elizabeth down to Heartbreak Hotel. Yeah.
This is like Saturday Night's Main Event all over again.
So, I mean, I'd worked on that kind of stuff for years, so I knew how to do that. It just came easy. And it's like doing the videos for Rob Feinstein. I mean,
who?
It's easy to do, but I know the things that I can say that'll just piss these smart marks on these internet punks off.
Right. Right.
Because that's what they are. They're a bunch of fucking punks.
I agree. I hate wrestling fans. But that's another story.
I
didn't say that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I really don't hate wrestling fans.
I'm
just getting caught up in the moment.
I love the fans, but I hate the backdoor stuff that they do. They're fan. It's like I can ride in the car with someone. They can pick me up in Philadelphia and drive me up here to do this in Newark or New York, and you talk to them and you're honest and you're talking and we're talking about world affairs and different things, because I don't want to talk about wrestling. And then 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, there's a post on a Facebook or a fucking Twitter that you said something, and this asshole is not your friend anymore. He says that he's talking like he's pissed off at you.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I tell you that if anything, social media has definitely changed not just the wrestling business, but life.
Well, I use it, you know, I've used it, and I was out on the forefront of that too. I had a website that was very controversial and extremely controversial, which is probably one of the reasons why RF first used me, because that website was, I mean, it was controversial. We pulled no punches. We kicked everybody in the nuts and didn't care. We took no prisoners. And then the shoot interviews came along. I did the same thing. Then I did it on a podcast. And then you got guys that would say, like Bitchoff. Bitchoff said, oh, he's just trying to keep himself relevant. Well, what's he doing now? Is he trying to be relevant? He's posting shit every day of the week.
Right. I mean, if you're doing an interview, if you're doing anything, it's to keep yourself relevant.
I am in show business. I'm not in the professional wrestling business. I am in show business. Professional wrestling is just something, it's a catalyst for me to be in show business because I'm a showman. I'm not the excellence of the execution. Yes, son of a bitch, he's making fun of Bret. Okay, asshole, I'm not making fun of Bret. I'm talking like Bret. I'm not the excellence of execution. I never have been.
Right.
I'm a showman. I'm a song and dance man. That's what I am.
You're the Sammy Davis Jr. of wrestling.
I want to go out there and I want to do other things. I want to do radio. I want to do TV. I'd love to sit and go do movies and things like that. But you have to keep yourself relevant. Young people in this business, young people in other businesses, if you're not going to move up and you're not going to continue to change and move yourself along, then you're going to be stagnated, you're going to be at the bottom, and you're eventually going to be washed out.
Right. Let me ask you this. Have you ever gone too far and regretted it?
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I got to be honest. Sure, I pushed the envelope a long, long ways. And for some people to be really, really pissed off at me, probably, yeah.
Okay.
You know.
Well, at least you can admit that.
I mean, yeah, I'm going to admit it. I'm not going to be a prick and say, you know, I'm holier than thou.
Right.
Shit, I'm not holier than anyone. I'm probably worse than anyone else. But I mean, it's like I said, I'm in show business, and I understand everything when Donald Trump tweets and when he says stuff. Being that I have done that kind of a thing before and I still do it, I understand why he's doing it.
Right. Because
the only way to get his message out is for him to do it his own way. I can't depend on RF Video to for me to come here and every 2 weeks for me to plug something I'm doing. Hell, he ain't got time for my bullshit. He's got enough for me tonight, and he's done with me. I mean, that's just how it is. You got to pick up the pieces and move on. Yeah, I regret. You know what I regret?
Is there anything specific you regret?
I regret that I probably, with WWE and with Vince, because he is WWE, that I probably should have been a little bit more politically correct. And a couple of times when I'd get pissed off, and a couple of times I walked out.
Right.
No notice, no nothing, just walk out. And doing something like that makes the person, if you walked out on your soulmate or your wife or your family forgives you a lot faster than a lot of people. But if you just up and got pissed off one day and walked out and you never told them why, but then you humbly came back and you got pissed off and did it again, they never really knew why, then they start to lose trust in you. Mm-hmm. And losing trust in someone is a big, big deal. And Vince and WWE lost trust in me. And when you can't trust someone, you can't have them around anymore. They're not welcome back anymore. And that's one of the things I wished at the times when I would get pissed off that I would have said, do you have a minute and let's get it fixed and let's work on it. But sometimes I felt like the forces to be around all had the dagger out. And no matter what we might have gotten worked out, the knives were still coming. Because it was extremely vicious there at one point. It was extremely vicious.
Was one of these times when they wanted to give the Intercontinental title to Macho Man?
Well, that was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Was that the first time you walked out?
No, I had left Montreal once and just Pat Patterson said to me in Montreal, because he was there, he said, he sat down beside me. Pat's very smooth, and back then I didn't trust anybody. Pat's become, as far as I'm concerned, very nice guy, as honest as he could be at that point in time, being the position he had, and been around the business a long time, and has earned respect, and I give him that. And he sat down beside me. He's very smart, very intelligent, and said, I can just see one night on TV that someone like, and he threw the name out, Ravishing Rick Rude. Ravishing Rick Rude's up in the ring, and you're over doing commentary, and you throw the headset down and say, you just can't take this anymore, and you get up there and you jump on, bing, 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 and we switch you baby face, and looks like I'm getting my notice, because it hit me the wrong way. Now, it just rubbed me the wrong way.
Was this a plan, or was he just talking?
Well, that's where I fucked up, because I don't know. Was he just throwing something out there to see how I would react to it, or was it really going to be a plan? Or if I'd have said, yeah, that'd be great, probably the next week on TV it might have happened. I don't know. But I just knew that this babyface thing for me, I knew I couldn't make it happen. And I felt like if they were going to do that to me, then they're really trying to fuck me. And
but you didn't know.
No, I didn't know. And
is that paranoia?
Yeah. Paranoia sets deep. Into your mind it will creep.
Wow.
What was the name of that song? I don't know who did that many years ago. It's about smoking marijuana or something. But I was totally straight when that happened. We were in the locker room. There was no... alcohol or drug induced of anything.
So you just went home? Or you
I got on a plane the next morning, changed my ticket because Jimmy was not with me. He was in another town with someone, and changed the ticket. And I boarded the plane, sat down. Fuck, the next person that comes on, I'm sitting there. It's fucking Hogan, and he's looking at me like, he said, "Hey, brother, what are you doing on the flight?" I said, "Fuck, I'm heading home." So I told him that I was heading home. So I flew home, and then the phone rings, and it's Vince. What am I doing at home? And
I was going to ask, Vince was the first one to reach out to you?
Yeah. And then I told him, and I said, this ain't going to happen. This is bullshit. And he said, why in the world would you just up and leave? And so there again, I should have waited until they wanted to do this, or there was really going to be a plan before I overreacted.
Right.
I totally, absolutely overreacted.
Were you dead set against the babyface because you knew deep down it wouldn't work?
Yes, I just knew it could. I knew I couldn't do it.
Okay.
I just knew it would not work. I knew it would be the death of me.
Right.
And I had worked for so many years to try to play on that main stage, and for it to be swept away now in the stroke of a pen.
But again, you weren't quite sure that was...
No.
Right.
No, I wasn't.
That's fascinating.
So I took a powder, I left, and then I took a day off. He gave me a day off, or I think I might have, had the day off, and then I came back, and everything was hunky-dory, and then...
you weren't called in the office, or
No, it was, we settled it on the phone, and
there was no reprimand?
No, we're not going to do that. No, you're a great heel. Vince he's rubbing my ass. He's greasing me up. He's getting ready to put the steely Dan to me. Right. So, I knew that.
Right.
Fuck. I've been around long enough to know when I'm going to get fucked, and I know it's coming soon.
Right.
So, but anyway, I always had that paranoia about that, because, like I said, this circle around these little lieutenants that they had were such asshole backstabbing pricks that they were just looking for dirt on someone, and when they want to get dirt on you, they can find it.
Right.
Because I'm not, as I said, I'm not a saint. I'll probably do something that they didn't like, and or even if you didn't do anything, they're going to go tell Vince anyway, and then you have no recourse, and that's what always pissed me off. And in the very beginning, I thought my deal with Vince was, and I always told him, I said, listen, if any of the Stooges say something about me, or tell on me, or tell something on me to you, at least give me the opportunity to defend myself. And he agreed to that. But then, does he ever call you in and say, now listen, one of the agents said you did this or that? And it's like, you never know what they're saying about you in the agent meeting, that they're stabbing you in the back and making Vince believe something that's going on that's really not going on, because they got a hard on for you.
Right. Was that the culture in the locker room at that time with everybody?
It was, yes. It was getting that way with a lot of people.
I mean, didn't that cause a lot of contention in the locker room?
It caused a lot. It caused fights.
Sure.
It caused a lot of shit going on. And
did the office know this?
Well, I don't know if they were instigating it or what.
So they could have been behind
it could have been. It could have been coming from the top. I don't know. You'll never find out. They're never going to say unless. God forbid Strongbow can come from wherever he's at, heaven or hell, and say what was going on, or Jack Lanza will sit down and give you a truthful, honest what was going on, or Tony Gurria, one of the guys that was there doing it, or for Pat to sit down and say, but they're never going to say.
Maybe they thought if everybody wasn't friends and wasn't colluding together, then they could never rise up against them.
I say, like I said, you divide and conquer. You have everybody fighting each other, and that's what started to happen. It got pretty bad there. It got really bad with the backstabbing. Guys started riding in the cars together, no sharing the hotel rooms anymore. It got real sticky situation, and people fighting, and then you had the Dynamite Kid thing that was going on with all the ribs that he was pulling, and pretty soon there's a big fight there. So it just started to fester. And you just knew that. And I wasn't the only one that took a hike. There's a lot of guys went AWOL.
Sure. Ricky Steamboat.
They would just go away. They would just leave and not show up for 3-4 days, and whether they were on some kind of binge or just pissed off, I don't know, because I didn't ask them why. What happened to you? Why you didn't show up? Because I understood they were probably having problems too.
Yeah.
It's like I said about the politically correct. I could have handled it a lot differently than just up and letting my emotions get control of me. But I was like everyone else. I'm not going to make an excuse, but these are some factors. Fatigue, strung out from the road, 60, 70 days without a day off. Your clothes stink. You stink. And then your body's hurting. And now you got to put up with the skullduggery, let alone the physical stress. Now you got to put up with the mental stress of, am I going to be fired today?
Right.
Because there was no job security. So everyone pulled back in the shell. You ask about the Macho Man thing. Could I have handled that differently?
Can you tell that story? You've told that story for us before.
1,000,000 times it's been told.
It's been told, but there's a few things I wanted to get into that.
You asked me the parts, and then because I don't want to rehash it all again.
I don't want to rehash it either. But the things that I found fascinating about the story, you're in the room, everything's being discussed, and you're never mentioned once.
Right. Well, I wasn't even looked at.
Right. No one even looks at you.
Right.
Ted DiBiase is scheduled to get the world title.
Yeah.
Now, he must have been pretty upset at you.
I'm sure he was.
Did he confront you?
No, never.
Never once?
No. Ted was a seasoned veteran, and I'm sure that the skullduggery that went on, he was getting everything like Hogan. He had first-class tickets, he had a limousine, he had his hotel paid for.
Was that because of his gimmick, or was that because of they?
That was his gimmick. Plus, he had been promised the world championship when he came there in the very beginning.
Sure.
Either with or without the $1 Million Man gimmick. The $1 Million Man gimmick came along in the $1 Million Belt after the deal with, I think. Was he doing $1 Million Man before? Maybe so. He might have came in as $1 Million Man.
Well, as you told it originally, they gave him the $1 Million title to
the $1 Million title
to circumvent him not getting the world title.
Yeah. Ted has never said anything to me about it. Ted's a great guy, and he understands the business. And if he sat down and talked to me, and he's probably heard my interviews of, I used to get on Ted about his preaching and everything, but I think now as time has gone by, I'm not so hard on him. And that I think he truly, honestly has changed his life a lot,
right?
And kept his marriage together and his family together, which is a good thing. And no matter what the motivation might be, it worked to keep his family together, and that's all that matters at the end result. And so he's done wonderful with that. Was he upset about it? Well, I'm sure. You've been promised the world title. Well, I think the bad news had been promised the world's title, too. Mm-hmm. Was he upset? Well, yeah, he chased Vince's ass all around the Philadelphia Spectrum, going to kick the shit out of him.
Right.
So, I was promised a run with Hogan. I never got that either.
Why did that never happen?
It just never materialized because I had the Intercontinental belt, and I was doing, myself and Macho Man, we were doing really good business, and the cards we had were doing fabulous in the other towns away from Hogan. So there was no reason to, let these guys go with it and let them go. That's why I didn't understand wanting me to lose it to Randy when we were doing so good.
Right.
I don't think it needed to be done. Randy would probably have never been the world's champion, ever.
Well, they created the title tournament for him as
for that, and he would have never been the world's champion. And would Randy have made a good world's champion? He did make a good. He might have went on to be world's champion, but they wanted him back with that Intercontinental belt again, and I just never gave them a chance to tell me what they were going to do with me.
Right
there again, I let a fit of rage and just fuming emotions overtake me. And I walked out of that room so deflated, but yet so absolutely, what the fuck? We sold out every night in advance for the next month. And this is what you want to do? But they never told me what they were going to do with me. Now, can I blame them for not looking over at me and saying, now here's what we're going to do with you? Never happened. And I didn't, because once this conversation had gone so far that direction towards Randy and Liz and his future, I don't know if I would have even heard what they were going to tell me anyway. Because at that point, I was ready to just get up and walk out of the fucking room.
Now, did you regret not blowing up in the room?
No, because I didn't feel that kind of rage and anger to start yelling and cursing at Vince.
Okay.
Because I had respect for Randy and Liz being there and everything. And it wasn't that. If I'm going to vent myself about my career, it needs to be me and the guy paying me.
Right.
Not me in front of other people that don't really care. I think it was a shock to Randy to hear all these things they were going to do for him. Because they had never set him down and told him all these things they were going to do for him.
Sure.
And he was getting a lot of the skullduggery himself from the road agents and things, and they didn't really like Randy and like his attitude, and they didn't like the fact that Randy and I were doing so good together either. So they were after both of us, and Randy and I both knew that. We had talked about it a couple times in passing, not often because we didn't speak that often. I don't think he realized that they were going to give him back the Intercontinental, and probably in Randy's eyes, he probably thought it was demeaning to him to get it back.
Yeah. I was going to ask you that. Was he...
I would like to have sometimes sat down with Randy and ask him all these things.
Sure.
I never got the chance to do it. How did you feel that day in that room when they never even looked at me and they were talking to you? And Randy had been a promoter and a booker, and his dad was a promoter, and they had their own territory for years. He understood how to deal with talent. He understood how you fire somebody or how you hire somebody and all those things. And I would like to have asked him what were you thinking that day they were saying all that stuff, Randy?
Did you ever have any conversations shortly thereafter this meeting?
Only the fact that I first called him off to the side. I said, Randy, that's got nothing to do with you. It's strictly business. It's got nothing to do with you.
Did he understand?
He said, I understand completely. So I think he really understood that sitting there and them not even talking to me at all probably made him think, this might be me next time.
Yeah.
That they're going to do this too. But he understood. He was like, right away. I saw him that night at the building. I think we were in Hartford or New Haven or somewhere close to the office. And I said, Randy, can I see you a minute? And I said, this is really bad. He told me, he said, hey, brother, it's business. Do what you want to do.
So he supported you.
Yeah, he knew that it wasn't personal.
Did any?
And a lot of these asshole marks, you cocksuckers, Randy had no problems. It was not an issue between Randy and Honky Tonk Man. That was a non-issue. Make it what you want. It had nothing to do with it. Randy understood it was business. And if you guys don't understand the business, then I don't give a shit. That's why you're smart marks.
Indeed. Now, this how wrestling is and rumors start. Did any of the what went down in this meeting trickle down to the locker room?
No, because we did that show in New Haven, then we went to Vancouver, which was a really good house there. New Haven was packed, sold out. Vancouver was a big house. We went to Calgary. I was just not feeling really good about it, and I had from I think I called Jim Barnett from Vancouver like the second night.
Right.
I'd had enough. I called him the next day I called him from Calgary. The next day we got to Calgary, I called Jim Barnett's office.
All right, before we get to the end of the Intercontinental run, let's go back to the beginning of the Intercontinental run. I interviewed Ricky Steamboat, and Ricky Steamboat had nothing negative to say about you at all. Matter of fact, he spoke glowing of you. But the one thing he did say was he was having his own problems at the time where they wanted him to drop the strap. He wanted time off. They were messing with him.
I'm glad to hear him say that they were, because it was true.
Yeah, he said that they wanted to stretcher him out, like all these things that he didn't want to do.
Right, right.
And he said that they gave the belt to you because you were Hogan's buddy. Is there any truth to that?
See, that's a misconception. Everybody was Hogan's buddy.
Right.
Ricky wasn't Hogan's buddy, though. I don't know if he said anything bad about Hogan or anything negative towards Hogan at all. But
he did, as a matter of fact.
Well, as a matter of fact, they were not.
He said that
they were not buddies.
He said that Hogan had contempt for him because him and Randy stole the show at WrestleMania 3, and everything changed after that. And he felt like his career took a spiral because he was stealing the spotlight from Hogan at WrestleMania 3. Do you think there's legitimacy to that?
Nobody stole the spotlight from Andre and Hogan. I mean, they could have had that match, just those two guys that night, and sold probably 50,000 tickets. They didn't need us. I mean, the support cast and the matches that were set up only made the show bigger, but the people came to see Andre and Hogan.
Right.
They didn't come to see anybody else in that fucking card. I don't care what anybody else in that card says. They didn't come to see me and Jake Roberts and Alice fucking Cooper. They didn't come to see Macho Man and Ricky. They didn't give a shit. Sure, it was a feature match. You think they cared about Harley Race and Junkyard Dog? That was a match on that card. King Kong Bundy against midgets? The fuck? There was one match on that fucking card.
Right. Well, do you think there's any legitimacy to the fact that after the fact, because he said that him and Randy came through the curtain and got a standing ovation from the boys. Did that happen?
I wasn't standing at the curtain because I think we were going on, or I had already been on. I might have been in the shower getting ready to stand at the curtain to watch Andre and Hogan.
Okay.
So no, I did not. I didn't witness that.
So after the fact, he said, maybe not during the show because that was Hogan Andre, but after the fact, that match received such glowing praise from not only from the boys, from the agents, to everybody, that Hogan felt threatened by the babyface of Ricky Steamboat.
I know it sounds good, and would Hogan have felt threatened about all the positive publicity on the match? Probably, yes. Anybody in our business, if everyone's talking about what a great match these two guys had, well, of course, it's a great match because you don't have Andre the Giant, who is strapped up with a big thing on his back, a big thing to hold his back together, and he had to take two people to pull the straps to tighten them up so the guy could walk to the ring. Of course, sure, there was probably other matches on that card that were very good, that were better than the Hogan-Andre match. But the people paid to see one fucking match, and it was Hogan and Andre. Mm-hmm. And no matter how good or bad it was, that was the feature match. I had a match with Jake Roberts I thought was a good match. We had a great ending with the Snake and Alice Cooper and Jimmy Hart. And there was a lot of good matches. From top to bottom, those matches were good on that fucking card. Was there animosity? I'm sure that Hogan probably thought, yeah, sure, okay, well, Well, was Hogan in a position to hurt Steamboat? Obviously he was. Yes, he was. And so I can understand Ricky's feelings on it. Yes, I can. I
Okay.
really can. See, Ricky doesn't. Obviously, he doesn't. Sure, could Vince have picked someone else for the Intercontinental belt? What would Ricky have said if he had lost it to the natural Butch Reed? Would he have been okay with that? So we don't know. I mean, I don't think anybody's asking that question. Butch was supposed to be there that night, and you were going to lose to Butch. Would you have been okay with that? And if he said, well, yes. Well, Honky Tonk Man was there, and Butch wasn't there, and so you're not okay with that. Well, Beefcake's Hogan's friend. What if they'd have done it? Being Hogan's friend had nothing to do with me getting that belt. That decision was made by one person, Vince McMahon. Or him and Pat. Vince did not tell me right then we're going to do that match. I walked by and Hogan goes, well, what about him? Because they were talking about what to do about the Steamboat Butch match because Butch wasn't there.
Right.
And it was like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the afternoon.
And Butch was scheduled to get the title.
Yes, he was going to beat Steamboat.
And
I think Ricky knew that. And when I walked by and Hogan said, what about him? And Vince says, well, maybe so. And Hogan said,
it was as simple as that.
Vince went, well, maybe so. And Hogan says, I'll let you guys talk. And Hogan walks away. And then Vince tells me the story behind Ricky wanting to leave and everything. But Vince is talking like a promoter, like I've heard promoters talk. I need the belt in the town. I can't have the belt sitting in Charlotte while he wants to take time off with his wife and everything. You know, he's going to have to drop the belt, and I got to have this belt, and I need somebody to run with it. If I give this belt to you, will you run with it? I said, Vince, I don't even want a day off. And he said, I'll get back to you. And he walked away. And that was it. I didn't know. I didn't know until he came and gave me the finish. Didn't know it. So who Vince talked to after that, I have no idea. So, Ricky, if you're listening, there was nothing pre-planned about it. Hogan mentioned my name. That's it. Ricky, you were friends with George Scott. He was the booker. He brought you in from Charlotte. George Scott was a booker in Charlotte. He was your friend. He put you in a good spot in both companies. That's what we talked about earlier. That fraternity of guys. Is anything wrong with that? George put Roddy in a good spot there, and he put Bob Orton in a good spot, and Orndorff, and he put Jimmy Snuka and Sergeant Slaughter. He put all them guys in a good spot because that was his. And Ricky, you were part of that fraternity.
Did you feel animosity from Steamboat after the match?
No, he left. I didn't see him again.
He just walked out.
Well, he was done, and I didn't. I think they talked him into coming and doing a Madison Square Garden where we did a lumberjack match or something, maybe, and it did really good. It was sold out. That was about the only. I think he was back like that month for that, and then that was it. He didn't come back anymore.
Right.
He was gone for a long time.
So you have the strap now, you have the title. What's your mindset going
I
into
would like to know from Ricky, what does he think happened to him in WCW? Was it Hogan's fault that he got canned down there?
Right. I mean, that's not the only run-in that he had.
I mean, I would just like to have some answers too.
Right. That's not the only run-in he's had.
I hate
with
to be
management.
the whipping boy on all this because I'm just walking by and just trying to keep myself good and do good. Have good heel matches out there with no matter who it was, whether it be S.D. Jones or Lanny Poffo or Pedro Morales or Tony Gurria or Rene Goulet or whoever they threw out there every night for me. I was just trying to go out and have my matches. I had no idea. I had no idea about this Intercontinental belt. I didn't even have any thoughts of winning a belt there.
Right.
Never crossed my fucking mind. It's not like me and Hogan got together somewhere and, you know, we got all smoked up and, yeah, hey, man, hey, brother, we go, you know. Didn't happen.
Right. So, I mean, he probably would have had something negative to say about anybody who got the title.
I will. you know, at that part, it is what it is, and I take that with a grain of salt. And I mean, I've been around Ricky a couple of times after that, and we're cordial to each other.
Yeah,
that's all I can
like
say.
I said, and I want to preface this by saying this: I am not in any way trying to stir the pot. This is what he said.
There's not a pot to be stirred.
I have. He was an amazing person. It was a great interview, but I was just wanted to get your reaction.
There's not a pot to be stirred there.
Right.
No.
Right.
Because it doesn't matter. That's how it happened. You know, we all have a view on something, and we don't all see eye to eye. That's why that's what makes the world such a great place.
I mean, at that point in his career, according to him, he was at his mindset. He was burned out. That's why he wanted out. He was having trouble with the office.
That was it, and then that's what happens, and that's how it went. I mean, he obviously couldn't leave with the belt, so he had to lose.
Right.
And he's going to lose somebody.
Right.
I mean, he probably wished he would have lost it back to Randy, which would have been okay for him. I think, and Randy might. Who knows? Randy might have been upset with me because I get it back and he didn't. I get the belt and he doesn't get it back.
Right.
He's like, "Ooh, why are you passing me over?" I mean, Randy would have been the logical choice.
Yes, I think Ricky said that. Like he expected to go into a big program with Randy where they were going to trade the belt.
Right. And so, yeah. I mean, I wasn't privy to any of that because, like I said, I was working underneath on the card, and hell, the guys underneath, and I mean, you know, we didn't pay attention to that shit.
Right. So you have the belt now. What's your mindset? What's your mindset with your first week with the Intercontinental title? Do you see big things? Do you see it turning into anything, or do you think you're just a transitional champ?
I thought it would be. I knew that if I got that belt, that I could make things happen with it. Now, how long I could keep it was a whole different story. You're right. No, I never thought about it being transitional. I never thought it would last that long, of course. I figured going into the thing with Jake that I would lose to Jake.
Okay.
That's what I figured. I was going to lose. I would lose the belt to Jake because Jake and I had a program.
Right.
And then he goes, "Oh, he's shit." First week I got the belt, or second week he's in rehab. So I mean, Jake, of everything that's said between you and I, God damn, I'm glad you went to rehab about 5 or 6 times. You just kept that belt on me longer and longer. Yeah, ching, ching. Uh-huh. Oh, man. That son bitch tried to buy my name. He tried to buy my name. I don't want your fucking name. If I wanted to buy your fucking name, I'd have bought it. I didn't think you're going to live long enough. That's why it wasn't a good investment.
You know, that's funny you bring that up. That's funny because I completely forgot about that. That trademarking thing that you were doing. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, Vince trademarks somebody's name. He thinks he's a genius. I
Right.
trademark somebody's fucking name. They call me an asshole. So, they don't understand. If I wanted to trademark their name, I would have. I could have because they didn't own it. And most of them still don't own their names.
Which is amazing.
Because it's absolutely stupidity to not. Okay, you're a free agent now, and you go do a search, and you find out if I could probably still get the Snake, the Dragon,
Right.
Hot Rod.
Did you officially trademark anything, or?
No, the only other trademark I have other than Honky Tonk Man is the Patriot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I did that because the war was going on, or whatever that one thing they were doing over there, Desert Storm or something. And we had used, when I had been out on the Independence, we had used Dale Wilkes. And because we, going to military bases, to have a Patriot, a red, white, and blue, and you're at a military installation somewhere around the world, it's a great gimmick. You need it. You
Right.
got to have it. And so we had used Dale on some of those shows, and then all of a sudden he was AWOL. Nobody could find him. Well, he was in jail.
Right.
I mean, that's obvious, and not saying anything behind Dale's back. I like Dale. Dale's a nice guy. He's always been up front, real first-class gentleman. And he doesn't understand what happened and why, but if he's listening, now he'll know. And so then the war was started, and I knew that sooner or later Vince was going to have a Patriot. Because it's obvious, you got to have that flag bearer and all that stuff in USA, and Duggan wasn't the man for it. I mean, to have because he'd had the Patriot before, and Dale had a run with Bret, and it was quite successful. The USA thing and the Canada thing, and it was big, it was a good little deal. But then Dale went away again, or maybe it was that particular time, and so we needed a guy, so Tom Brandy, I got him on the tours with us. Sal Sincere, it's what he was in WWE, and he would go and he would do Sal Sincere, the gimmick, and then come back, dress up, put the Patriot outfit on, and go out there and wrestle me or somebody, usually me, because he was the Patriot and I was the mean bad guy, and everybody hated me on the base anyway, and see this Patriot kick my ass. So it was all well and good, and I figured that Vince might someday want this gimmick again, the Patriot. And I asked Tom, I said, Tom, why don't you trademark it? And he didn't want to do it. He said, nah, that's Dale's gimmick. I don't want to do it, blah, blah, blah. I said, well, we can't find Dale. Dale's gone. So I've trademarked it. And I wasn't going to renew it. In fact, I think it's up this year or next year. I'm not going to renew it because, I mean, it doesn't mean anything now because they're not going to do the war thing. The perfect thing right now would be the Patriot come out there with Jindal, and Jindal's got the rag on his head, and man, I can see some money there. I mean, that's too hot of an issue.
Yeah.
I don't know why wrestling got so fucking soft on hot issues. Man, can't we have a Patriot out there beating the shit out of a guy with a rag wrapped on? See, I'm going to get heat now for saying the rag's wrapped on his head. A turban. A goddamn turban. By God. Jim Ross, by God.
All right,
How many times can Jim Ross say Stone Cold in a 5-minute fucking match? Stone Cold, Stone Cold.
Think Jim Ross is a little overrated? Called the greatest announcer?
Fuck.
I'm a little partial to Tony Schiavone myself.
Oh boy, you want some heat, don't you? I don't know. Jim did a good job at what he did as far as announcing now.
Sure. What about talent relations?
There's, Jim had a job to do, I guess, and he did it.
Yeah.
It's a thankless job, and it's one of those ones where it's a very difficult situation to be in because you have to make decisions for the guy that's paying you, and he's telling you to go do this. It's not Jim's decisions.
Right.
I mean, don't get mad at Jim. He's just the guy. He's the messenger.
Did a lot of people take it out on Jim because they couldn't?
I'm sure he's had a lot of heat from different guys about it, but it's not really his fault. I knew his position, and I understood it. Same as I knew Pat's position, and Jerry Briscoe, and I mean, I understand their position, so why bother? I mean, they're just a messenger.
Did you think you were going to keep that title that long?
No, never dreamed it. It's like I said, I thought it was good. I thought I'd drop it to Jake.
Sure.
That's what I was thinking.
Did you think you were on borrowed time?
I didn't know how much time.
Right.
I mean, I didn't know. I didn't care. All I knew is now this is finally what I have come here to do. Because I had been the Puerto Rican champion. I had been the Southern champion. I had been the tag team champions in Memphis. I had been tag champion and the North American champion in Calgary. I had been the Alabama champion in Alabama and Mississippi. Had all these belts around all these different places, so I knew how to carry the belt. And that means a lot. You have to know how to carry the belt, not just around your shoulder or around your waist. You have to know how to make the belt mean something in your matches. And I knew how to do that. And I took that Intercontinental belt because it did mean something, because Randy and Steamboat made it mean a lot. So did Pedro and Tito and a lot of guys that had that damn thing. I mean, it don't mean a hill of fucking beans now.
Right.
But it really meant something, and I didn't want to diminish it. What I wanted to do was take that thing and with this character of mine, push it to the limit, and I did. And I worked hard, but I tried to work with everyone that I worked with while Jake might be gone, or when Steamboat was gone and I had to have all these substitutes. I tried to put the matches together with those guys that kept the belt worthy of someone beating me and switching the belt so that it did have some value when they got ready to switch it, and no matter who it might be. So all the substitutes were non-title matches, so I would lose every night. I'd get beat by Bruno, and I'd get beat by Pedro, and I got beat by Campatera, and the list goes on and on of all the subs that would come in and take over because Steamboat was gone, and then Jake was gone, then Jake was gone again, then Jake was gone again. And thank you, Jake. God bless that crack pipe.
As the title reign gets... the Honky
I hope
Tonk
you're,
Man.
Jake, if you're listening, I hope you're doing very well. If you can keep yourself on the straight and narrow and keep your family together, God bless you, brother.
There you go. As the title reign gets longer and longer, do you feel more power in the WWE? Do you feel are you getting more secure in your position?
When the towns are doing, when the towns are drawing, when you had the substitutes there, I was just prodding along, trying to keep it together till Jake might get back or Steamboat might come back. But yeah, as the heat started to rise on me, you know it. After a couple of TVs, when I'm the greatest of all time, I can't be beat, because of all these substitutes, and I would go back, and all the fans that had seen me in the Meadowlands, and they had seen me in Madison Square Garden, they had seen me in Boston get beat by Bruno, they'd seen Pedro beat me, they'd seen S.D. Jones beat me, they'd seen everybody beat the shit out of me,
right.
But I'm on TV going, I can't be beat. I'm walking the streets looking for a fight, I can't find one. Nobody can beat me.
Right.
I'm the greatest of all time. So the steam just kept building around this and this. It wasn't so much, they just wanted me beat. I just think people wanted me beat, period. They didn't care if I lost the belt. Then it got to the point where we just want that belt off of that son of a bitch.
Were you being treated different by the office as the?
Well, when you're selling tickets, yeah, you get treated with a little bit more respect.
Right.
Your money goes up, obviously, so you have a better quality of life. You live a little bit better on the road. You don't have to share a room with 5 more guys and eat bologna sandwiches every day to save money. It's because you're making some money now, and you can live a little bit more independently. You have a little more freedom. Your mind can be a little bit better. But you always had to watch out for the sharks.
Right.
Those fucking skullduggery assholes with the knives. They'd sharpen those daggers every day and get them ready. So that never stopped. But yeah, you do get a sense of, I'm doing good, and this other company down south, they're paying a lot of money to people now.
Yeah.
They're giving.
So that was on your radar as champion?
That if anything happened to me, yeah, I'm out of here.
Interesting.
I'm going for the because some guys had the word to trickle back that these guys are getting first class tickets. They're making $300,000-$400,000 a year, guaranteed contracts. They're only working 20 days a month and 10 days off, and it's like, man.
Are the other boys in the locker room hip to this and are have that on their radar as well?
I'm sure whether they would admit it, everybody knew those contracts down there was some money flowing.
Right.
Not the kind that Bischoff was giving out, but this was before Eric Bischoff, long before Eric. And so then when the thing come up for me to dropped the belt, and that's when I knew, hey,
Well, I was going to ask you.
I'm gone.
When I was in, before you lost the strap, were you worried about how your position would drop once that belt was removed?
Oh, I
from
knew.
you?
I didn't know. I never knew what they might do with me because we had never discussed anything further.
So there was no plan after a title drop.
Until after the Warrior, and after the Warrior, there really wasn't anything other than Vince said that he wanted some. I'm gonna need some return matches with the guy. And I was like, roll my eyes, like, oh, are you shitting me? And so I went out and did the best I could with the guy. But he never told me past that point where I was going. But I knew I was boxed in because I had pulled the power play on the Randy situation.
Right.
I didn't have any cards left in the deck.
So you knew that there was a backlash coming.
Oh, I knew. Oh, yeah. I knew that Steely Dan was getting ready for me again.
Right. And you had.
And this time there ain't gonna be no slick slip sliding in there, buddy. It's going all the way mean.
A no lose.
It's going
Dan.
raw. R-A-W.
Now you stated.
It sounds. I mean, we laugh about it, but I mean.
At the time, I'm sure it wasn't funny.
It was fucking true.
Yeah, it wasn't funny at the time, I bet.
I mean, it wasn't literally true, you idiot fans, that they were going to give me the Steely Dan. It's a figure of speech, you assholes.
That's a new T-shirt for you.
I think Steely Dan might be copyrighted, but we can work on that. So, leading up, you
You know, Howard Fink and those guys, he'll probably show Vince, and look at this son of a bitch, man. He's fucking nutcase.
We're never putting him in the Hall of Fame. I thought this was the kinder, gentler Honky Tonk Man. What happened from the beginning? How did we get here?
Some memories never die.
Unbelievable. But you were okay with the Ultimate Warrior thing.
Well, I mean, I knew. I mean, the writing was on the wall.
Right.
Like I said.
And according to you, and this is research I've done, they warned you, or not warned you, but they had given you a plan, like what was coming with the Warrior.
Because of the Randy situation, then there was a laid out plan with the Warrior.
Right.
So I had no problem. The plan was fine. I agreed to it. I liked it, and it was ultimately at the end to lose the belt was my call. Do it the way I want. I didn't ask for that at all, but I was given that opportunity. I mean, I didn't go in and demand, okay, here's how I'm going to lose or anything. I didn't say a word. I said, sure, no problem. I said, how do you want to do it? And he said, you do it however you want. I just need him over, and I need him over strong.
So that you called that finish?
Yes.
Wow.
From curtain to curtain.
That's a good call.
It's all mine.
That was a good call.
Everything. Every move that was made, every thing that was said, the whole works.
It's fascinating.
Because they needed a cue to send him out. They gave me the mic time to do it, and I said, I need to come out and say this. And the cue was, get me somebody out here to wrestle. I don't care who it is. I came here today to wrestle. Now get me somebody out here. And I gave the microphone back to Howard, and within about, I don't know, they waited about, 30 or 40 seconds.
They waited a
to
while.
just get a little drama, and then hit his music, and that was it. And every move was all mine.
So with the belt off you, at this point in your career, does legacy mean anything to you? Like, are you?
No, I knew I was going to work these return matches with him, and how long they were going to last for 2 months, 3 months, I had no idea.
Right.
Vince never said. He just said, I'm going to need some return matches with him.
But do you look back on what you accomplished with how many days you had the title and that you were in fact the longest running?
I never even had it never even crossed my mind until years later.
Okay.
Years later, when the fans actually did something good, they were the ones that reminded me of all these dates and times.
Right.
I didn't even think about that. Didn't care. It didn't matter.
Right.
But what's a legacy without a fucking paycheck?
Yeah. Not everybody has that. Not everybody has that same. I've asked that question to pretty much everybody, and not everybody has that same answer.
Well, I mean, shit, it looks good on your goddamn tombstone, I guess. 15 months, the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time. Fuck, he ain't got enough money to bury the cocksucker. Who's gonna pay that fucking bill?
I think it'd be copyright infringement if you put the Intercontinental title on your tombstone.
Maybe, I don't know.
But anyway, so
bury me with it.
So you don't. You no longer have.
I want to take it to my grave.
So without the strap, what's the mentality of the Honky Tonk Man now? Are your eyes on WCW? What's the future? Are you worried?
I knew WCW was there because they were getting bigger,
right,
and stronger, and signing more contracts, and they had taken Steamboat then, because now he had come back into the picture.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't stay gone forever.
No, he was back with the Dragon gimmick.
Yes, so after the Warrior, it was do some jobs on TV, put Bret over, and then I knew that I'm gonna be jobbed out completely. And Vince said he wanted to put me doing commentary, TV commentary. He says, you can talk and everything. I think you'd be great on commentary. I said, Vince, I still think I have some legitimate time and in front of the camera, not behind it. And this will be good. But then it was a 3-man team, which is extremely difficult, and had Daffy Duck there. That's what I call Roddy, Daffy Duck, because he wouldn't be quiet. You couldn't get a word in edgewise.
Right.
So I was kind of like behind the 8 ball on that.
Did you have to be talked into that? Or were you accepting?
No, I went along with it because I still was looking for some longevity somewhere, but I knew going behind the camera into the microphone situation that coming out of that, you don't ever get back into the ring anymore.
Yeah.
Because commentators, once you've been reduced down to doing commentary, then you're not really a legitimate wrestler anymore.
Right. Well, that happened to Randy.
So that's how I feel about that. It just was. I thought it would work. I thought it would have worked, and then there again, the knives came out, and some things happened on the way to the promised land. Plane tickets that didn't show up, and nobody to pick you up. And I'm supposed to have somebody pick me up, drive me to the garden to do commentary. Nobody there.
No one cares about the commentator.
Never happened to anybody else, so. Roddy had a car to pick him up. Roddy's tickets were there.
Is this payback?
Yeah. It's the drip now to see how much longer he'll take this. Which didn't take fucking long. They should have already known that. He ain't gonna take this very long now.
Right.
This motherfucker's gonna leave.
Right.
Which is what they wanted anyway.
Right.
Just fire me. Just tell me you don't have anything for me. They did it for Valentine. They told him, we don't have anything back, Greg. We don't have anything right now. Rhythm and blues, we busted them up. But see, I went into rhythm and blues really before I went into the commentary.
I was going to ask you about rhythm and blues.
So we had that little rhythm and blues for about 6 weeks.
Whose idea was that?
That was something they wanted to do with me and Greg, put us together. I think it was Pat's idea. They wanted to keep Greg around a little bit longer if they could, and they wanted to see just keep me around a little bit longer because they wasn't really sure what was going to happen. They didn't have the Road Warriors, and that's who they were pandering for. They were really, really pandering to get them, and at that point they didn't have them, so we were like the backup team.
Did you like doing it?
I enjoyed it because I had been in tag teams my whole career before I went to WWE. Mostly I was tag team all the time. Short time perfecting the Honky Tonk Man gimmick as a single, but I did a lot of tags and as that person also. And then the rhythm and blues was a great thing. I mean, it had a lot of heat. People hated it. They thought I'd brainwashed Valentine to dye his hair and all that shit. So the heat was still there. I mean, the people still hated me.
Right.
I didn't have the belt, but they still hated me. They didn't give a shit. They hated me. And which was good. And then once they got the Road Warriors, then they sent Greg, gave him his papers, and he went to Japan, got him a spot in Japan, and put me in commentary. And then that was it. I heard about Greg and guys. Slaughter had left and was. I mean, these guys were making good money out on the independents back then. I'm talking $1,500, $2,000, you know, in the 80s, early 90s, and selling, you know, $500, $800 in photo money,
right.
Making a $3,000 night, and fuck, it's like, man, this is more than Vince is paying, which is kind of what the rumblings I'm hearing now with some of these guys. Some of them are saying we can do better doing, you know, Ring of Honor and different things around the world, and we
Cody
can.
Rhodes.
Yes, and some other guys are. It's a little bit of rumbling, but you know, there's no safety net when you leave that big umbrella of WWE.
So, by you saying that, were you worried about when you're doing commentary and the ratings on the wall, you're not getting picked up, there's no cars for you? Are you worried about your future?
No, because the WCW thing was
so that
still
was always
there.
in your back pocket.
Because Jim Barnett was still there, and Jim Barnett was Honky Tonk Man friendly because I'd known Jim Barnett since I started.
Right.
And he knew of me and knew my talents before I was Honky Tonk Man.
Right.
He knew that I had drawn money in different places without being Honky Tonk Man. So that was a given there. That was not a big issue. I knew there was a place to go. There were still other territories. There were still places to go.
Right.
So that didn't bother me at all. I knew I could get work. It's just the way that it had to end on such a sour note instead of being a good luck to you. We've had a hell of a good time. Doors open for you. A year, 2 years, you want to come back.
How'd it end?
Very sour with me not showing up at the Garden and Vince calling, wanting to know where I was. I told him I was sitting home in Memphis. He said, "What are you doing there?" He said, "Why didn't you come to the Garden?" I said, "I didn't get any plane tickets." He said, "Why didn't you go to the airport?" I said, "Well, what fucking airline am I going to go to?" And I had to go ask everybody, "Hey, you guys got a ticket for me?" And he hung up. And that was it.
Wow. Have you spoke to him since?
Yeah, I spoke to him after that. They called me again about, I don't know, 9 or 10 years later.
What was that conversation like after?
Well, he didn't call me, but I saw him back. Everything was fine. Just like old times.
Just business.
Yeah. Then I did the Billy Gunn thing, which was a total fiasco.
The wedding, right?
I was a fucking. I didn't do the wedding. I was managing Billy Gunn and I was doing commentary managing Billy Gunn. It was horrible.
Right.
Billy hated it. I hated it. It didn't work.
Rockabilly.
Didn't work for anybody. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he'll tell you it was the worst thing ever happened to him, and I'll tell you and everybody else the worst thing ever happened to me. Mm-hmm. It was bad for both of us. Neither one of us wanted to be in that situation because it sucked. And then they did the click thing, and essentially I wasn't booked anymore. Then they didn't call me again for 9 years. And Kane hits me over the head with a guitar and dumps me out over the top rope with my jumpsuit on. That's good.
They call you.
Throw him over the top with a $5,000 jumpsuit on. I did it.
Right.
Because if I hadn't have done it, they'd have said, "Well, you don't want to do it, pack your fucking bag." I mean, either way, I was fucked. I just want to know when Vince is going to stop whipping me. I mean, I know I did some bad things.
Is the company?
Can you just? I mean,
is the company
will the whip ever leave?
Is the company that petty where you think that because of what you've done so very long ago, that even to this day, that you're getting the backlash from that decades later?
Oh yeah,
that's some company.
It's a trust factor. It's what we talked about earlier.
Right.
And I suppose Vince at one point, or I've heard these stories that he likes loyalty, for people to be loyal. Well, I'm as loyal as anybody can be, as long as you're still taking care of me, paying me.
Wouldn't it be more respectful to be loyal to yourself first?
Well, that's the road I took. I mean, hey, it is what it is, so you have to live with it.
Right.
I can't make them hire me. I can't make them call me. I can't make anyone do anything. And I'm not going to try to. If they want you there, I said it earlier, you will be there. If they want me to be the commentator for Ring of Honor, I'll be doing commentating for Ring of Honor.
Right.
If they, if they want me to go to Japan and manage somebody, they will call me. You just don't show up and go, hey, I'm the new quarterback. Yeah, good luck, asshole.
You spoke of when I asked you the question about when your title run was over and the legacy and looking back on that, and you didn't think about that and you didn't
I never
care.
thought about it.
Sitting here, 2018 fast approaching, you look back at your career. Is legacy important to you, or is it?
No, not really, because it has. To me, it has. I don't hold anything sentimental in the wrestling business. There's no sentimental factor to keeping an old picture or an old video or an old jumpsuit, or I don't have any sentimental personal attachment to 15 months, 64 weeks, greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time. Fuck, I was the one that started that shit. I was the one that said that.
Right. So that's like a TV role.
Yeah, it was just it's something I did. It's a part I played.
Right.
I can understand now where actors and actresses take a role and they look back years later and say, gosh, I've been stereotyped as Jethro Bodine as being the hillbilly,
Right.
I'm Max Baer. My father was this great boxer and all this, and I've done great things in Hollywood, but everybody looks at me and calls me Jethro Bodine.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, goddamn.
That's kind of going on.
It's been 100 fucking years.
The convention we're at now, that's kind of happening.
Please. It's only I'm not the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time.
Okay, so
I just happen to be someday, somewhere, that record's going to be broken.
Hogan said, what about him?
That's all. That's all it was.
It's remarkable. Well, what do you think of the
I don't walk down to the post office and stand in line with everybody else going, oh, you mean postage is this much? We don't pay this much in Iowa. What the fuck? Postage is the same everywhere, you idiot. Fuck.
Well, what do you say to the performers who it does matter? Like their championship reigns matter.
I think their ego's bigger than their cocks. It's amazing that you let a business that you're in consume you, which the wrestling business will consume you. And it did me. It consumed me for a long, long time. But the wrestling business does not consume me anymore, and it hasn't for a long time. I do it now as a ways and a means to pick up some extra money for my daughter who's in veterinary school. It's a tool now for me to use this legacy that you call it. This legacy is what keeps me going out here.
Right.
It gets me autograph signings. It gets me into Comic Cons. This legacy gets me another action figure. This legacy gets me into a video game with WWE. And so that's what the legacy means to me. It means that the checks might keep coming. Someday they're going to stop. I mean, they're not big, but they're a check.
Right. Well, how does that work with WWE? Like, this is just a personal. I'm curious. Like,
you just get the royalty check on shit
do
you're in.
Do they contact you before they release an action figure?
No.
So you don't even know what's coming out.
Don't even know it.
That's
My
interesting.
webmaster knew about the Warrior and myself and the new one that's out 2 months before anybody, and he told me, and about a month before they put them out, the FedEx truck showed up and dropped me off a box that had half a dozen of them in there.
and you just get a royalty check based on that?
Yeah, you get about a nickel for each one they sell.
A nickel? I see.
So you got to sell about 100 million of them to make any fucking money.
Oh my God. Do you license your own image out to like third party?
No, I don't do any licensing.
Right.
WWE has the rights right now as long as I'm on their. I'm on a nostalgia contract. They have two different ones, Legend, I think, and Nostalgia. I'm on Nostalgia. They have the rights to do that. Depends on what it is. I could do them. You know, since this is not, RF is not a wrestling TV show, I don't think there's any issue with doing RF stuff.
Right.
It shouldn't be any issues
Right.
at all. But when I went over and did Lucha Underground, I thought there might be a problem with that because I was appearing on another wrestling TV show.
Right.
But and nothing ever came up.
If they were to induct you in the
Plus, I didn't play Honky Tonk Man anyway. I was a character on that show.
right.
My legacy is big with Lucha Underground. I was Officer Odell. I played a fucking part.
Right. But okay, that's totally fine. I'm just curious because you're in the limelight. You're in front of you're in front of millions of people, and you're making impressions. Like you see the fans that come up to you, and it almost seems like your legacy means more to the fans than it did you.
Well, it always does to sports heroes or movie stars or anyone. You don't realize that your work touches so many people's lives in certain ways.
Right.
Which is sometimes positive, they love you, and then sometimes it's negative where these guys, after this shows, there's going to be a lot of them, that son of a bitch, ungrateful prick. So,
Right. 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 I'm sure there will be.
yeah, so I mean, that is what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I accept that when I come out and do these things.
Right.
I mean, you can't please everyone.
It's understandable.
I mean, and I don't try to. I'm not going to.
If you were inducted into the Hall of Fame, who would you have inducted?
Well, I don't know, and I've been asked that question a lot, which you don't get that opportunity. They don't give you that. That's not part of your deal.
Right. But if you could.
I really don't know.
Jimmy Hart?
That would be a possibility.
Eric Bischoff? Oh.
That would be good to make him do it. That would be nice. That's the kind of stuff Vince might do, though.
Sure.
Have my cousin Jerry Lawler do it, which Jerry and I are fine now. Everything's water on the bridge with us.
I tried not to.
We're back together.
All the stuff I didn't.
No,
want
we're back together.
I didn't. Want
We had a nice conversation. The time when I was supposed to see Roddy and Roddy passed away, Jerry was at that same Comic Con, and we ended up talking and for about 15 or 20 minutes, had a great conversation, and just like old times.
Maybe there is a brotherhood.
Yeah, of course.
Of course.
Yeah. And he'd gone through, his brother, my other cousin, had just passed away. He was just getting over the heart attack thing, and he's got it all together now, which is good. I'm glad. Jerry's a good guy.
Yeah. So we're gonna wrap this up. In closing, been here. It's getting late. You got a big.
Who would you like to see induct me?
If I
Who
could-
would you? Smart Marks like to say.
I'd say Jimmy Hart.
How about Jake Roberts?
I don't know if he would be available that day.
I don't know. I mean, it'd be interesting. It would be interesting because, who would want to be the one to go up there and say I'm a nice guy?
That'd be tricky.
Yes, it would. It would be a crapshoot. Who's going to do that job?
Well, listen.
I think they would probably just pick someone from the office guy to do it.
Like Pat Patterson.
I'd like to see Mean Gene do it.
Yes, somebody from the office.
Mean Gene would be good.
Mean Gene could sell it, and he got no axe to grind or anything. He would be good to do that. Somebody from the office, I think. It doesn't matter. Someone from my past that probably would never get to be on that stage at all that knew something about me.
Right.
Really, you don't have to know anything about the person to induct them. It's just a 3-minute speech that you give, and hopefully, whoever would give the speech is not trying to put themselves over, because that's not that moment. Someone asked me about when I did Coco's thing. I said, well, it was Coco's night, not mine, and it was all built around him.
Right.
And the friendship and the camaraderie that him and I had established very early in our career. Not anything about me. It had nothing to do with me.
Right. Well, as it sits with the way the Hall of Fame is presented and the people who they've given it to in the past, though your legacy may not mean as much to you, I think it means something to the fans, and I think you deserve to be in there.
It means a lot to the fans, and I'll say this, even though I've knocked a few of the fans tonight in certain ways, or today, whenever you're watching this, it's not being mean or hateful. Let me put it that way. It's being honest to the fact that, and some of you know who you are, that have, said things and posted things about me that were sometimes very cruel, very malicious and underhanded and kicking me in the balls. But you know what? I deserve it. I accept it. But sometimes some of you can't say, you know what? That son of a bitch, at least he accepts the fact that he's been a prick. Life is a bed of roses. It really is. But you got to watch out for the pricks.
Honky Tonk Man, thanks for being here. This has been.
I've enjoyed it.
This has been amazing. Thank you so much.